All right, so this week's session will be on introduction to the GRE Verbal Reasoning, sentence equivalence. All right, so sentence equivalence, like text completion questions, these ones you remember we did in last week's class. Sentence equivalent questions test the ability to reach a conclusion about how a passage should be completed on the basis of partial information. But to the greater extent, they focus on the meaning of the completed whole. So that's what makes text sentence equivalent questions really stand out. They just need to care, like, do you understand what the sentence means when it's a whole? So that's what they really care about. That's what they expect from you. Sentence equivalent question consists of a single sentence. So it's always going to be a single sentence, never more, with just one blank. And they ask you to find two choices that lead to a complete, coherent sentence while producing a sentence that means the same meaning. So sometimes these words are synonyms, sometimes they are not. But as long as the two choices that you pick, there will always be two choices. As long as the two choices you pick give the sentence the same meaning, that's what they're looking for. That's what they're interested in. So this is what you get in a sentence equivalent. So it will consist of a single sentence. It's going to be one blank, so a sentence, and then one blank. It could be in the middle here, and then a sentence. So, but it's going to be always one sentence, and then one blank for you to answer, and then 6 answer choices, A through to F, and then you always have to select 2 of those. So it requires you to select 2 of the answer choices, no credit for partially correct answer. So again, if you get one and then fail the second one, this entire question, you failed it. So each GRE verbal reasoning section includes approximately 4 sentence equivalence questions. So you might be wondering the breakdown. Remember, I gave you last week's breakdown for text completion. So for this one, it's going to be 4 for each section, 4 for each section. So you're going to see 8 sentence equivalence in total. Sentence equivalence questions. You're going to see 8 of them in total. Your choices must create the same meaning. Essentially, the words must be synonyms. Most of the time, the words are synonyms, meaning they have the same meaning. While the task might feel familiar, so most of us are used to this format means that there are no obstacles to navigate on your way. So these are usually really complex words. It's very rare for you to find like a very simple. These are GRE level words. So the vocabulary here is where is really key, is really important for you to know. You need to know these very hard level type of words. So as I've mentioned, you will see approximately 8 total sentence equivalence questions. So this is what you're preparing for, 8 total sentence equivalence questions. So in all the questions that you're going to do in GRE verbal, you're going to do an 8 total questions in sentence equivalence, 4 on each verbal section. These questions will take you about 1 minute each. So they're not very complex. They're not too hard to do. Just about a minute per question should be enough for you to cover each question. Right? So what are some of the tips for answering this question? What are some tips for answering this question? The first one, and always the most important one for every single, and I always repeat this for the GRE verbal part, is read the sentence to get an overall sense of it. We are doing it for the text completion, and now same thing for sentence equivalence. You always have to read the sentence to get an overall sense of it. So go through the entire sentence before even thinking about looking at the answers. Make sure you understand what the sentence is asking. Secondly, identify words or phrases that seem particularly significant. Again, very important. Either because they emphasize the structure of the sentences, words like although, moreover, these types of words, or because they are central to understanding what the sentence is about. So whenever you're reading these sentences, just make sure you understand like which words stand out to you. So there's find words that stand out to you, find words that have meaning and that change maybe the structure of that entire sentence. These words are what will give you a guide about what to expect in the sentence equivalence. The other one is try to fill in the blank with a word that seems appropriate to you. Then see if 2 similar words are offered among the answer choices. So if you find some word that is similar to that, what you're expecting but cannot find a second one, do not become fixated on your interpretation. Instead, see whether there are other words among the answer choices that can be used to fill the blank coherently. So this basically always pick out your answer first. Pick your answer first. So this one is not the answer from the answer choices. Don't look at A to F first. Always think, read the sentence. Make sure you understand the sentence. When I understand the sentence, find a word in your head that you think could fill in that blank appropriately. Like if I read this sentence, am I able to know that this is the type of word I'm looking for? Am I looking for a positive word? Am I looking for a negative word? What words could probably fit in there? Then when I find the words that fit in that blank, then I look now at the answers. Do I know like which two words have the same thing as what I found? Again, don't become fixated on your answer. So it may be that your answer, maybe you found one that means exactly what you wanted, but the second one you can't seem to find it. Don't be fixated. Just look at the other words and look at what could fill your answer in a way that makes sense. Again, you can't really know this if you don't know vocabulary. So vocabulary is important. It's not the most important thing, but again, it's quite important. Then when you've selected your pair of answer choices, check to make sure that each one produces a sentence that is logically, grammatically, and stylistically coherent, and that the two sentences mean the same thing. So again, read through the entire sentence again with the answers, the first answer and then the second answer. Do both of them make sense? Do both of them have the same meaning? I can't be saying like someone is good in one sentence and then the other sentence is someone is bad, right? They have to have the same meaning. If the first sentence is someone is good, the second sentence should also be someone is good. So make sure it's logical, firstly. Make sure it's grammatical, and then style, like the styling of the sentence. Some words might feel correct, but they are not, they can't fit in that blank stylistically, right? So how do these two usually differ? How do sentence equivalence and text completion questions differ? How are they different? For sentence equivalence, these questions test your ability to determine how a sentence should be completed by using the meaning of the entire sentence. So this sentence is basically what's going to give you an idea of the answer it wants. The sentence is only one sentence, and then it's going to give you a word. Like when you read that sentence, you will be expecting what word to fill in there. These questions have a sentence with one blank space and ask you to choose two words from the 6 that make equivalent or logical sentence. So these words could be synonyms, or both of the words could make like the same sense for that question. In text completion, on the other hand, tests your ability to read critically. So you remember we were reading, it's going to be 2-3 blanks, to recognize the meaning of the sentence or paragraph as a whole. Because of the number of blanks that we had, you have to recognize it as a whole and then select words that logically fit the blanks. All right, so only one answer for each blank. It could be 2 or 3 blanks. So you have to find a word that fill the blank correctly. These questions have 1 to 5 sentences with 1 to 3 blank spaces and ask you to pick words for each blank. So for text completion, it could be the same as sentence equivalent. It could be one sentence with 1 blank, but it's not going to ask you to pick 2 answers. You only have to pick 1 answer for that, even if it's 1 sentence. So don't always be in a hurry. You see 1 sentence and immediately in your head you think, oh, this might be a sentence equivalence question. Always make sure to read the instructions that you're given by the GRE. Again, the GRE is very specific. It's always going to tell you what it needs. All right. So what are some strategies when you're answering the sentence equivalence? Let's look at some strategies, and then we're going to try and use these strategies in a few examples that I have here. So the first one is consider all answer choices. Never dismiss. Always come in with an open mind, right? Always come in with an open mind. Whenever you're reading this sentence, always have an open mind. Always be prepared for any answer. So read and check all answer choices in the sentence before making your final choice. Don't just immediately read the sentence and then immediately think, oh, I know the answer of this, and then I've seen the answer here, pick it out. You might be so wrong, right? So always read all the answer choices in the sentence before making your final choice. Make sure you know what a couple, if not all of them, make sure you know at least what a few of them mean. An answer might fit well in the sentence and closely match your prediction, but if there is no answer choice that completes the sentence with the same meaning, it isn't correct, right? So that's why it's important to read all the answer choices. You might think that option A probably is correct, but you find option D and F here are even better. They make more sense logically, for example. So I might have come up with answer A in my head, but these two are the ones that make sense. But because I've already picked answer A and I've fixed my mind on that, I end up picking answer A and another one. And that, because I've already picked answer A, which is wrong, I fail. So even if I picked A and F or A and D, maybe you're reading, some people read A and then they read B and then they read all the way to F. You've read A, you thought, A looks correct, and then you've read C. C looks correct. Then you pick these two, but probably it was A and F here at the end, but you did not even take the time to read F. This causes you to fail this question. So always be sure. For text completion, it's not like the quant side of GRE. You have some time
Was you muted?
Yeah, sorry about that. Just give me a second. Sorry. Sorry, everyone. Sorry, I'm so sorry about that. I just I had a little problem here. So whenever you're reading this, whenever you're reading the GRE sentence equivalence, I know there are so many answers. A to F is like so many answers, and sometimes it can turn out to be so overwhelming. So just take the time. You have a little bit of, you have rather more time than whenever you're doing your quant side of it. So just take the time, read all the answers, try and see which answer best describes whatever you're doing. The second strategy will be to paraphrase the question. So if you paraphrase a difficult or longer sentence in your words, it will be easier for you to predict the answer. So again, this comes back to understanding. So if you understand, if you're able to break down the question and understand what the question wants, that's the only way you can find an answer. Like if I read a question and I have no idea what it means, the likelihood of me picking a correct answer is so low, right? So paraphrase the question, like get the question in your own words, try and make it in a way that you understand what does this sentence mean to me. If I read this sentence, it's going to be easier for me if I'm able to put that sentence in my own words. Like, do I know what this sentence wants? Do I know what I'm expected to answer in this question? So if I'm reading a sentence, try and break down the sentence, paraphrase the question. Have that question in your head, like in a way that you understand it. You don't have to answer the way they are asking you. Try to break down that question and then understand it in your head, answer that question in your head, and then now look for the answers, all right? So paraphrasing will also make sure you understand the meaning of the sentence exactly. So if you're able to break down that question in your own words, you'll be able to really understand like what this sentence wants and what this sentence expects. Does it expect a positive? Is it a positive tone, right? Is it a positive tone of sentence? Is it a negative tone of sentence? So does it expect like positive answers? Does it expect negative answers? And you can't know this if you are not able to paraphrase and understand the question. That strategy, and this one usually makes people fail so many times, is look beyond the synonym. So I know this sentence equivalence, you're told to find words that have the same meaning, but that's not always necessary. Simply finding a pair of synonym words in the answer choices will not lead you to the correct answer. Sometimes you think just because I found two words that have the same meaning, maybe A and C have the same meaning, then this must be the answer. This is not always correct. You might find that option B and option F, for example, these two have they are not synonyms necessarily, but they give the answer the same meaning, the same choice. So this one is what will be correct. So don't always, just because you found a synonym and you know this word and this word have the same meaning, then I'm going to pick that one. That's not always the case. Answer choices may include a pair of words that are synonyms but do not fit in the context of the sentence, right? So A and C might be synonyms and have similar meaning, but they don't really fit in what the sentence wants. So yes, I know these two mean the same thing, but I'm not looking for synonyms. I'm looking for what makes the sentence complete, what makes the sentence whole. So both of those choices will be incorrect. The meaning of each sentence must be the same. This is the most important thing, not about synonyms, the meaning of the sentence. Meaning of the sentence. Like whenever you're reading that sentence, do they have the same meaning? Are they both positive? Are they both negative, right? So they must be the same and correct. So they have to be the same and then they also have to be correct. So the words that you're using have to be correct. Try both words in the sentence, checking that each sentence has the same meaning before you make your final choice. So make sure the sentence is giving you the same meaning, and then you can make the same choice. All right. Strategy number 4 that really helps people if you don't know the full meaning of a word is use prefixes, suffixes, and roots. So think about the meaning of the prefix, suffix, and roots in words that you know if you are struggling to figure out the definition of the word. So let's say, for example, a word like intermittent, right? Intermittently, for example, this word up to here, maybe this one is something like inter. Here is the prefix of this one. So inter could be interval. So already you're talking about something with interval. So this prefix, even if I don't know the meaning of this entire word here, I know I'm talking about intervals. And the intervals probably has to do something with time. So this is how you break down the word. Always try and see, do I get the prefix, suffix, or the root of the word? Like where is do I know the first 4 letters in the word, like am I able to make a word out of it? Is it a familiar prefix? Is it a familiar suffix? So break down the word even if you don't know the meaning. Try and see, am I able to get the meaning? Sometimes the words could be hard, but yeah, that's the first. For example, if I didn't know intermittently, I know what inter means. Inter is interval, right? So I can be able to figure out the definition of the word using the prefix or the suffix. So I think we can move on now to doing a few examples and then try and use these strategies that we've just discussed here, and then see if we're able to break down these questions. Are we able to understand them? And then from there, I think we can end the discussion on sentence equivalence. So let's start on number 1 here. So although the Industrial Revolution brought about a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, the methods used for printing and binding of books continued blank till the early years of the 20th century. All right, so I'm going to give you 10 seconds to read this one, then read the answers, and then we can discuss it. So I hope everyone is reading this sentence. All right, so let's go ahead. Although the Industrial Revolution brought about a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, the methods used for the printing and binding of books continued blank till the early years of the 20th century. So what is this sentence talking about? Let's listen to someone's opinion. What do they think? What does this sentence talk about? And also, which words do you think are keywords? Which word stands out to you? So what is the keyword here? Let's have a volunteer. Yes, Kian, go ahead.
So for me, what stands out is although the way the sentence begins, that means the second part of that sentence would be, of course, negative, because the first part talks about advancing in terms of new technologies, and then the second part will automatically, based, of course, on how the sentence starts, would negate that. Yeah, that's my...
Awesome. That's absolutely correct. So the use of although here implies contrast, right? It implies contrast. It implies negation, right? Negation. So meaning, because we're starting with although, meaning whatever will come in as the second part is going to negate whatever this first part of the sentence is talking about. So let's look at it. Although the Industrial Revolution brought about a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, all right? So we are talking about new techniques here, right? So we have new techniques in the area of machine design. So although there's new techniques, meaning something remains similar, meaning something has not changed, indicates that something did not happen. This although here means something did not happen. Even though there's new techniques in the Industrial Revolution, something did not happen, right? Something did not change. The methods used for printing and binding books continued blank till the early years of the 20th century. So with whatever method, the methods that were used for printing and binding books, even though we had new techniques here, they continued, the methods were used to printing and binding books continued blank till the early years of the 20th century. So the methods that were used here, it means they were not changed by the new techniques, right? Nothing changed because the new techniques came in. So although here, as Ian has pointed out, stands for contrast, meaning even though we are talking about new techniques here, these methods have remained the same. So we are thinking about words that will mean the same thing as they have not changed, right? So these things have remained the same. So unchanged, maybe having things that remain the same. So let's go through the answers. Intermittently, right? A is intermittently, B is improving, C is transforming, D is unchanged, all right? I just mentioned that, unchanged. E is advancing, F is unmodified. So let me hear. What do you think the correct answer is? What do you think the correct answer is? Let me have a volunteer, please. I'm seeing your answer here, and unchanged, unmodified, right? So Let me hear from someone. What do they think? What do they think the answer is and why? Richard, I can see you've unmuted yourself. Just go ahead.
Just according to how you have explained it, it still supports the statement. So it's going to be, so they weren't improved, they remained unchanged. So unchanged to our, since we answered in our own without looking at the choices, then we look at the choice. So the same words, either D and F, unchanged or unmodified.
Exactly. Thank you for that. So of course, I'd already just by breaking down this sentence, even without noticing the answers, I answered that question without knowing. So that's how sometimes it happens. So we are talking about even this keyword here that Ian mentioned is what has helped us now break down this. But let's just look at the other words. What do they mean? So we have intermittently, and if you're writing down, maybe you can hold. This means intermittent, it's talking about interval. So so happening at irregular intervals. That's the meaning of intermittently. So methods of printing and binding books continued intermittently, meaning happening at irregular intervals, but it's not really explaining more about what the sentence is. So that cannot really work. Improving means becoming better. So it might have worked, right, if they did not talk about although. Again, although. See, you see the way although has changed this entire sentence. The methods of used for printing and binding book continued improving. It might have improved, but we are being told although the Industrial Revolution brought these new techniques, meaning whatever happened did not really change. So becoming better again will not work for us. Transforming means changing. Again, you see, so someone who was just looking for two words that mean the same thing would have gone with this. But because of although here, it changed the entire meaning of this sentence. So if although was not here, we just had the Industrial Revolution brought a raft of new techniques, the methods used to printing continued improving, transforming would have worked. But because of although, and that's again really brings out very well the meaning of this sentence, we transforming will not work here. So transforming means changing. Unchanged meaning remaining the same. Very simple. Remaining the same. So we've said that's one of our answers, because even though this industrial revolution happened, these new techniques just made everything in printing remained the same. Advancing means, again, improving or becoming better, right? There's advancing in medicine. There's so many advances in medicine. Improving or becoming better or complex. It also means becoming more complex. That is advancing. Unmodified means not changed, again. Not changed in form. So basically the rules of this sentence rule out all other answer choices except answer choice B and answer choice F. So I hope that is clear. I hope that is clear for everyone, right? Yes, Shadrach, go ahead.
Boaz, just a question. According to me, the sentence, if I replace the blank space with either unchanged or unmodified, honestly, it doesn't, according to me, it's not correct grammatically.
Why
I
do you
don't know
think
what
that?
everyone else thinks.
So let's just go through it, right? Let's read it, right, with our answers. Let's look at that. Although the Industrial Revolution brought a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, the methods used for printing and binding books continued unchanged till the years of the 20th century, right? So continued unchanged, meaning it remained the same, continued unchanged. Our second answer will be, although the Industrial Revolution brought a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, the methods used for printing and binding books continued unmodified till the early years of the 20th century. So why do you think, Shadrach, this sentence does not make sense? Maybe let me hear it from your perspective. Shadrach, are you here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to read it with
No, it's okay. It's okay. You can process that. Just try and then see from your perspective, are you able to understand? It's really important that you understand it. So the thing that I
Yeah,
think should
because
start out for you should be although here, right? So whenever you're thinking about, think about although, what does although mean for this entire sentence, right?
yeah, I mean I understand that part.
Mhm.
I completely understand that, but I think it's confusing me because it's two words in the past tense following each other. But I think I can work
Yeah.
on that.
So we are talking about early years of 20th century, right? So we are not in the early years. I understand what you're talking about. So we are really talking about the early years of the early years of the 20th century. So we are talking about something. So it changed eventually, right? So that it already changed. We are talking. We don't really know. Let's not assume again. But we are being told until the years. I'm assuming because it says until the years of the 20th century. That means at some point it might have changed. But before the years of the 20th century here, it remained. Even though everything else was changing, right? There was new techniques. Until the years of the 20th century, the methods of printing and binding books, something happened for them, right? They did not change. They did not really undergo any metamorphism, right? So that's why we're talking about unchanged and unmodified, because we're talking about it in the past tense, Shadrach. I hope that's okay. I saw Alphonse raising their hand. Alphonse, go ahead, please.
No, I just wanted to add in the aspect of time, the one you mentioned, till the early years of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are supposed to, because the although negates, basically what you're going to put in there is negative.
Mm-hmm.
The time till the early years also tell us that something, let me just say something ancient has happened over that course of time. Showing that there was no transformation, there was no change. So I think if maybe we find that the conjunction or the whatever, the although is not effective enough, we look at also the time aspect of the sentence. It will also help in directing.
Yes. That's a very good point to point out. So Shadrach, basically until the early years of the 20th century. So meaning after maybe the late years of the 20th century, this might have changed. If this paragraph was longer, we might have known that, right? Maybe something different happened. Maybe we stopped printing and binding books. We don't really know that, right? But until the early years of the 20th century, something remained constant for them because of the author here. So although then there was new techniques, something within printing and binding remained the same. Shadrach, I hope that's okay. That's why these two words are in the past tense. And if you notice, it's the only words actually in the past tense, right? So Shadrach, I hope that's okay. I hope that's better for you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So the answer would be, although the Industrial Revolution brought about a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, the methods used for printing and binding of books continued unchanged until, if you don't want to read this till, you can always read it as until. So continued unchanged till the early years of the 20th century. So that makes sense for the first sentence. Although the Industrial Revolution brought a raft of new techniques in the area of machine design, the methods used for printing and binding of books continued and modified till the early years of the 20th century. So both those sentences make sense, and both those sentences mean the same thing. So with that, we will have gotten both of our correct answers, right? So I hope you are good with that. I hope we've been able to note what these words mean. Let's move on to the next question. Again, I'll allow you 30 seconds to maybe read and process this, and then we can do it together. Right, so let's read this sentence together. The blank tone and appealing image of American rock and roll and blues musician became popular with the British youth in the late 50s. The blank tone and appealing image of American rock and roll and blues musician became popular with the British youth in the late 1950s. So could someone maybe kindly tell us what they think about this sentence? What are we thinking about? Like what are they thinking about when they read this sentence? The blank tone and appealing image of American rock and roll and blues musician became popular with the British youth in the late 1950s. Yes, Alphonse, go ahead.
So to me, this sentence is in the positive because I'm looking at something that was attractive about rock and roll and blues musicians that the youths in the 1950s identified with. So I look for basically words that are in the positive, ones that speak of something that is, how do I put it? Something that is enticing, something that is maybe glamorous. Let me just use that. I think that's basically what I will look at.
Yes, that is exactly right. So when you're talking about the blank tone and appealing image of American rock and roll and blues musicians became popular with the British youth in the late 1950s. So here we are talking about something became popular with the audiences. So there is no negation in here. We don't have although, we don't have despite. So this is a positive sentence. So we are talking about because of something in the something in American rock and roll and blues, the musician became popular with the youths in the 1950s. So for this sentence, we'll maybe have to think about something that will make you popular. What will make someone popular? So it will have to be something pleasant, right? Something entertaining. These are the words that maybe I would think about. So something pleasant, something entertaining maybe. So when we are reading these answers, we have to find something that we can ask ourselves what kind of music makes musicians popular, right? Why did they become popular? It can't be because of something negative, right? It has to be something positive. So so the person that wrote this sentence was talking about how the musicians, as well as their tone of music, right? Their tone of music. So it's really important to think about where also as we're talking about this. So let's look at this, right? So the first answer is dulcet, right? Dulcet. B is cacophony. Then C is dissonant, and then bohemian. We have hoarse, and then we have glamorous. So this one here, dulcet, means pleasant to hear, or melodious. This is what dulcet means. So it could be, this could be an option. This could be an option. Cacophony means a jarring or unpleasant, jarring or unpleasant sound, right? So a jarring or an unpleasant sound. So cacophony, when you're talking about cacophony of noises, meaning there are so many noises, it's distracting to you. So cacophony is negative. So because it's negative, we can remove that we are talking about something that made it popular. So having a lot of noise that is unpleasant would not have made it popular, right? So remove B. Then we have dissonant. Dissonant means harsh, again, harsh or jarring in tone or sound, right? So dissonant means harsh or jarring in tone or sound. So again, really it's negative. So we can't really go with this. Bohemian, on the other hand, means bohemian is living without any respect, or living without any respect or regards for conventional rules. So we are talking about the youth here in the late 1950s, and we are talking about bohemian. Bohemian meaning living without any respect or regards for any conventional rules. So this one might seem negative actually, but it's actually positive when we are looking at the aspect of this sentence. So living without any respect for or regards for any conventional rules. So it was something new. It was something that was not bound by rules and the regard for specific tones for the sounds back then, right? So this one could also be a possibility, right? So again, we start on that. So hoarse means weak in intensity. This is the meaning of this word. So this one is completely negative, right? If it was weak in intensity, it was probably not appealing to them. So again, this one removes this. Glamorous means attractive or charming. Interesting. This one could also be one of the answers. So we have three multiple choices there. So I'm seeing someone say dulcet, A and F for Margaret, dulcet, glamorous, Alphonse, B and F, Margaret, D and F will be, D is bohemian, and then A and F, sorry, dulcet and glamorous. A and B, dulcet and bohemian. So we have these three options. Could be dulcet, could be bohemian, could be glamorous. It's good to see you're also able to note that. So now we come back to this sentence. The blank tone and appealing image of American rock and roll. So the appealing here, appealing describes this image. So we need something. This blank here should describe this tone, right? The blank is before the tone. So we need the word that will come here should describe the tone and not really the image. So when we are talking about this, the answer, just because of the placement of where the blank is, we need to talk about the tone. So the tone can't really be glamorous, right? Glamorous is more like fashion, more like the image, right? So if the option was for the image, if we were talking about the image here, then glamorous would have been an option, right? Would have been an option. But for this one here, because just of the placement of the blank, where the blank is placed, the word that follows it makes a lot of weight, takes a lot of weight rather on what the answer might be. So dulcet would of course be used to explain the tone, right? The tone is dulcet, meaning the tone is pleasant, meaning the tone is melodious. The youth enjoyed listening to it. The tone could also be bohemian, right? I know some of us might have heard of or watched Bohemian Rhapsody, right? Bohemian Rhapsody. So bohemian, again, when it comes to tone, a tone can be bohemian, meaning it's something that is not bohemian. Does means it does not fit to the rules of what we expect, right? It does not fit to the rules of what melody was back then. Maybe in the late 1950s, these British youth were used to a specific type of music, right? So bohemian could be an option. Glamorous has been eliminated by the fact that we are talking about the tone and not necessarily the image. If we are talking about the image, glamorous would have fit in perfectly for this, but we are talking about the tone here. So the blank, tone, and appealing image. So the tone here, because it's tone, we have to go with dulcet and bohemian, right? So someone is talking about A and F, right? Deborah, I hope we are A and D for Brian. A and D for Ian, and then okay. So dulcet and glamorous for Alphonse. So I hope we're able to see like the thinking process and how exactly to think about this, right? Glamorous again would have worked perfectly, but we are talking about the tone here. A tone can't really be glamorous, right? A tone, when you're talking about glamorous, is something to do mostly in the fashion sense, right? So a tone can't really be glamorous. So the dulcet tone and appealing image of American rock and roll and blues musicians became popular with the British youth in the late 1950s. And then the bohemian tone and appealing image of American rock and roll and blues became popular with the British youth in the late 1950s. So I hope that was okay. Do we have any questions on that? Does someone feel like they have not understood? We are good on that. We're good on that. All right, awesome. So let's look at the next example. I've not heard some people today. I have some favorite people here, all of us here. I need more people to comment. I've seen. So let's look at this next question. I know most of us will now come in here, right? So fellow journalists Eric Savareid, Ed Bliss, and Alexandra Kendrick considered Maro one of journalism's greatest figures, noting his honesty and blank in delivering the news. All right, so 10 seconds, let us process this. Let us process this sentence. And then I need to hear from someone what they think, someone new, what they need, what they think about this question, like what is it talking about? Yes, Brian, go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening, class. For me, what I would my view in this question. First of all, the two journalists, Eric and Alexander, are considering Maro as one of journalism greatest figures. So, according to them, this is someone who inspired them positively, and so because of that, the sentence becomes a positive statement. So even when answering, you'll have to consider something like honesty and something else, positive attributes of a person.
Very nice,
Yes.
Brian. Very nice. That is exactly right. So this word stands out, right? Brian, I hope you saw that. You mentioned it. Honesty, yes. Honesty stands out. So whatever word comes next should also have like the same meaning as honesty, right? So I hope, thank you so much, Brian, for that. That is exactly right. The sentence is positive. I think we are looking for a word that supports honesty. Yes, exactly. That is true. Reliable, trustworthy, upright. Yes, that's also correct. Ian, that's correct, Alphonse. So whenever we are thinking about this sentence, so this sentence here talks about these three journalists. We have Eric Saverin, Ed Bliss, and Alexandra Kendrick. This sentence talks about what they think about tomorrow, right? What do they think about? What do they think about tomorrow? So they think he's one of journalism. So this one stands out. There's no negation here. They think what they think. What do they think? They think he's one of journalism's greatest figures, right? He's one, so meaning he's an upright person, he's a trust, he's really recognized, right? They respect him, noting his honesty and blank in delivering the news. So now let's look at the answers. We have integrity, we have deceit, credibility, we have duplicity, we have complacency, and then we have disloyalty. So let's look at these 6 answers. The first one here, integrity, means adherence to moral or ethical principles. So that's what integrity means, adherence to moral or ethical principles. Deceit here means, so this one could be an option because we are talking about honesty. Honesty and integrity go together, right? So deceit means cheating or tricking. So deceit is something, cheating someone out of something, or tricking someone out of something. So let's see. I will eliminate F, D, and B automatically. We will look at that. Margaret is saying it could be A and E. So let's look at that. Let's see. Are you correct? So let's look at credibility, right? Credibility means rather being worthy. So you are credible, being worthy of belief or trust. That's what credible means, being worthy of belief or trust. This again is positive, right? They know he's honest, so probably he's worthy of belief, right? Because they believe he's honest. So again, could be an option, right? Duplicity, almost synonyms with deceit. Duplicity and deceit mean almost the same thing. These two are synonyms. Duplicity again means cheating. Again, these are synonyms, cheating or tricking. So duplicity and deceit means the same thing. Someone speaking? Oh, it's Brian, it's okay. Right. So again, cheating or tricking for duplicity, right? Means cheating or tricking. Again, these two are synonyms. So I will eliminate these automatically. I will eliminate this, right? Let's move on. Complacency here means complacent, being satisfied. So being complacent, like I'm complacent, means I'm satisfied with the situation, right? Satisfied with a situation. Satisfied with a situation without, this is the meaning, without being aware of dangers. So if they think he's the greatest figure and they are noting his honesty, right? Where will complacency really come in, right? There's no way that they're talking about he became lazy in his work, right? Complacency, usually it's also the synonym of lazy, right? This is what's complacent. When you become complacent, means you become lazy, like you are satisfied with the situation without being really aware of what's going around you. So again, this is a negative. Complacent is a negative word. Complacent. Maybe if you say someone is complacent with corruption, meaning he knows corruption is going on, but he does not really take any effect to that. So disloyalty just means being unfaithful. So unfaithfulness. So again, this is a negative word. So this automatically eliminates disloyalty. So Ian mentioned it eliminates B, D, and so C. Immediately, we have already eliminated B, we have eliminated D, E, and F automatically. So that leaves us with A here and leaves us with C, C, which is credibility. So let's see what some people are saying. A and C, that is correct. Integrity and credibility, that's also correct. Mutai Ross is saying it's A and C, which is integrity, credibility. That's correct. A and C. A and E. Margaret, the second one you might not have gotten that. So I will eliminate F, disloyalty, D, duplicity, and B, deceit. Yes, so that is also correct. Ian, So again, just the way the sentence is structured, right? If you're able to process that sentence in your head, the way Brian has done for us here, are you able to process that sentence in your head? If you're able to process it, then you know this is a positive statement, and then you're able to break that down like that. You don't even have to know the answers first. So understand the sentence and then what it means. So fellow journalists Eric Saverid, Ed Bliss, and Alexander Kendrick considered Morrow to be one of journalists' greatest figures, noting his honesty and integrity in delivering the news. So that makes sense. That is correct. And then the second one is fellow journalists Eric Saverid, Ed Bliss, and Alexander Kendrick considered Morrow one of journalism's greatest figures, noting his honesty and credibility in delivering the news. So that is also correct. So A and C would make sense for this answer. All right. So I hope you're able to process that. So with that in mind, let's move on to the next example here. Right. So let's look at the next example. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to process that, and then we'll have someone tell us what they think about that question. So please process that, and then we have someone just tell us what you don't have to tell us the answer. You just have to tell us what do you think about this question? Like what do you think about? Someone is able to do it, please raise your hand, and then let me hear from you. Anyone? No one? Right, let me hear from some people. What do you think? What do you think? Do you have anyone? Aha, Ian. Very nice. Let's go, Ian. What do you think about this question? I just need to know what you're thinking about. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, so I'll try. I think this is a positive statement, and the first part, that means it should be a verb if I'm not wrong. Yes, so his writing of the common sense was so influential in dash the Revolutionary War. So that means he's doing something. So that's what we need to maybe look for. Yeah, so it's a positive statement. That's my view.
That is a very good view. We have it's a positive statement from Amos about the right of common sense. Spurring on, stimulating from Doug. All right, so let's look at this sentence together. His writing of common sense was so influential. That's the first part I would think about. Was so influential in doing something, blank, the Revolutionary War, that so Ian has mentioned is going to be a verb, right? It did something. So his writing of common sense was so influential in blank, the Revolutionary War, that John Adams reportedly said, without the pen of the author of common sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. So we have spurring on, we have stopping, we have ending, we have stimulating, obstructing, impeding, right? So let's look at this sentence. His writing of common sense was so influential, right? So meaning it was positive, just as Ian has mentioned. So it's positive, it was so influential, nothing has negated this fact. So the Revolutionary War that John Adams reportedly said, without the pen of the author of common sense. So the person that wrote this common sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. Meaning probably Washington won the Revolutionary War, won the Revolutionary War because of this book called Common Sense, right? So that's how influential this book was. So this book was influential. So it did something to the Revolutionary War, like it fired them on, right? It gave them the motivation to move forward. It gave them the motivation to move forward, right? They were thinking, because of this book, right? Because of this book, the sword of Washington would have been raised. Were it not for this book called Common Sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. So this sentence is a positive sentence talking about the author of this book called Common Sense. So it did something, right? It did something, and it did something positive to the Revolutionary War. It did something positive to the Revolutionary War. So let's look at some of these sentences. We have spurring on as A, stopping, B, C, ending, stimulating, obstructing, and then impeding. Let's look at A. A, spurring on. Spurring on means to urge or encourage someone to act. So this is a positive. Again, could be an answer. Stopping means to put an end to put an end to. So this is negative. Already we have said this sentence is going to be positive, meaning the blank is going to be positive. So a negative is not going to work for us. So eliminate. Just the process of elimination stops stopping. Stopping is a negative in this case. Right, then we have ending. Ending is the synonym of stopping. The synonyms means to stop. Again, would have eliminated that. Yes, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah, I do have maybe a question or a view. If, for example, that sentence, if the answer is something negative, the sentence itself, you mentioned about having a meaning. So if stopping a war is a positive thing, would that make the sentence positive? I don't know whether maybe we should be saying
I hear what you're saying, right? But whenever we are talking, when you hear about the Revolutionary War, you have also to look at the sentence in its entirety. So it's saying would have been raised in vain, right? So it would have been a waste to raise. This in vain here means it would have been a waste, right? It would have been a waste to raise, like it would have failed, meaning they did not want it to fail, right? So when they're talking about my efforts were in vain, meaning my efforts did not bear any fruit. So meaning whenever we are writing it here, they need it to be to make in a sense that whatever happened in the Revolutionary War was not in vain, right? So this theory was so influential in pushing through the Revolutionary War. So you have to think about this. Just without the pen of the author of common sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. So the tone of the sentence, like, do they want the Revolutionary War to stop? Then they will have used probably a different word instead of in vain here. So I do understand your concern about thinking about them wanting to stop a war, but not necessarily in the context of this sentence. So if you read the entire sentence, it will talk about their sword being raised in vain here. So this one would mean like their sword was not raised, basically was not raised in vain, right? So Shadrach, you've raised your hand.
I think for me, I would use the word supportive instead of positive, because we need something that is supporting, like to support that whatever happened was not in vain.
All right, yeah, that is actually a true statement, Shadrach. So basically what we need, Amos, I see you've raised your hand. Go ahead.
According to me, I don't see revolutionary war as a bad thing. It is something to do with leadership changing, bringing change, which might be positive.
All right, yeah. So yes, I was what just was Amos has mentioned, as Shadrach has mentioned. Whenever we are talking about these Adam, so whenever we are talking about this person, whenever Adams was, because we are looking at the views of Adams here, right? So when Adam was talking about this book, he was thinking that if it was in vain, meaning it would have been pointless, right? In vain means pointless, like it didn't bear any fruit. That's what pointless would have mean. So he thinks that this right of common sense made this battle to end in a better way. Like he caused the battle to the end results for them to be better for like everyone in this story, right? So this writer here of the common sense did something to this revolutionary war that caused it to end in a better way. It was not pointless, right? The war was not pointless. So if it had stopped the war, then that war would have been pointless in the first place. Right, Ian, I hope we are together there. So this in vain here means this war would have been pointless, right? So if this writer would have stopped this war, his book would have stopped the war, then the war would have been pointless. So that's why I'm saying the in vain here, whenever you read the entire sentence, should help you also think about what you think for your answer, right? Ian, I hope that's okay.
Yes, it's clear.
All right. So now that we know about what we are thinking about, so stopping and ending, you see now we have removed it. So if it was ending the war, then this war would have been in vain, right? It would have been a pointless war because then it ended so quickly. Stimulating means to encourage or incite. So in this, at this point, this book, whenever we're thinking about the sentence, so stimulating a war might be negative, right, to what we're thinking about. But in the context of this sentence, context is very important. The context of this sentence, this is a positive, right? It's a positive supporting this sentence, right? Obstructing, to block, right? To block or try to stop. Then impeding again means to block or stop. So again, you see these two are synonyms. They mean the same thing as these two. So the only positive sentences, the only positive words here are spurring on and stimulating, which will make A and D as the only two answers here that will make sense. So his writing of Common Sense was so influential in spurring on the Revolutionary War that John Adams reportedly said, without the pen of the author of Common Sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain, right? So, or to his writing of the Common Sense was so influential in stimulating the Revolutionary War that John Adams reportedly said, without the pen of the author of Common Sense, the sword of Washington would have been raised in vain. So usually these types of sentences, I know they could be confusing, especially because of the tone, it being aware and all that, but doing more examples with these types of questions will really help you be able to break down these types of questions, right? So I see there's someone in the comments. Let me read that. I would eliminate B, C, and E. All right. Yes, that is true, Amos. So Deborah is saying A and D. Yeah, that is correct. Deborah, that's very correct. Amos, A and D, that's also correct. Spurring on, stimulating Doug, that is also very correct. All right. Let's look at the next example here. So we're going to do so many examples to make sure like these concepts you're able to grab and understand them. This is the point of the verbal part of it. So again, 10 seconds, try and read this question, process it, and then what do you think? What do you think about this question? Which word also stands out to you? Which word like makes the whole sentence? Which word makes the whole sentence? Yes, Alphonse.
In this sentence, we're looking at something called the word reclusive, something to show that the person is shy or introverted. So basically makes the sentence to be in the negative. So I think it will really be somebody who will not want any kind of publicity.
Exactly right. So if you know the meaning of reclusive here, then you would basically have answered this question for yourself. So reclusive, as you has been told, does mean shy or introverted, someone who likes to keep to himself. That's a reclusive person. Like a reclusive person is an enclosed person. They don't want to open up to everyone, right? So Koetse is known to be reclusive, and he blanked publicity to such an extent that he did not collect. Also, again, to such an extent, he does something to a publicity, like there's something that he does to publicity, there's something that the way he reacts to publicity, to such an extent that he did not, right? He did not collect either of his two Booker prizes in person. So whatever publicity is, he tries to stay away from it, right? So much so that he did not actually show up in person to collect his prizes. So this one already means he does not like, right? He dislikes. This could be dislikes, right? He does not welcome publicity. These words I'll be thinking about, right? He avoids publicity. This, I think, also I'll be thinking about it to such an extent that he did not actually collect his two Booker prizes in person. So welcomes here. Welcomes means invites. So does he welcome publicity? If he welcomed publicity, he would not have gone to an extent of he will not have missed like his Booker prizes. He would have been there in person. So again, for this one, welcomes doesn't really work. Avoids, I've already mentioned this, to prevent or keep away from. That's the meaning of this. This one works for this, all right? Courts is to win attention, to try, when you're courting someone, is to try and win their attention. Try and win their attention. or goodwill of someone. All right. So again, quotes, it does not really work for our situation. Shuns here to keep away, right? Shunning something is to keep away from something. Keep away from something also means to avoid. It's synonym with to avoid. So again, works really well for us. Gathers means collects. Doesn't even make sense for this. I would automatically eliminate this, and then tries to experiment with. So does he experiment with with publicity to experiment with? So again, this does not really work for us. So that will give us avoid and shun. So Coetze is known to be reclusive, and he avoids publicity to such an extent that he did not collect either of its two Booker prizes in person. Or Coetze is known to be reclusive, and he shuns publicity to such an extent that he did not collect either of its two Booker prizes in person. So let's see. Margaret says B and D, which is correct. Sharon, B and D. I will eliminate A, C, and E. All right. So those are of course very, very correct, right? So again, understanding the structure of the question, breaking down this question. Are you able to break down the question? Does it make sense to you? All right. So let's move to the next question here, the next example, question 6. Again, 10 seconds, allow you to read, allow you to process like what this means, and then let's hear from someone what they think this. I don't need to know the answer, I just need you to understand what this sentence means. And which word stands out to you also. And I want to hear a volunteer. So anyone to try, which word stands out to you? What do you think the sentence means? What are we looking for?
Maybe just to try.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what stands out for me is the way it begins, even though. Yeah, so the first part, in my view, is negative. So it's yeah, if you look at the tone, and the second part automatically would now be something that is positive. So that is my view, yeah.
That is a good view actually, right? So we are talking about, even though Magellan would eventually die on his ambitious trip, on his ambitious cruise around the world, nothing was blank on the morning of his departure from his home port. Even though Magellan would die on his ambitious cruise around the world, nothing was blank on the morning of his departure from his home port. So we're talking about even though here has been pointed out. So even though he will eventually die, right? So even though like this ends horribly for him, right? He will die. Even though he died, nothing was wrong, right? Nothing seemed wrong. Nothing was wrong on the day left. Nothing was bad on the day left, right? So nothing was wrong, nothing was bad on the day left. So it was a good day for him. So he would eventually die. So even though he would eventually die, so even though here negates the second part, again negates the second part. So even though he would eventually die, right? Nothing was blank on his morning. So nothing was wrong, right? Everything went well on his departure from home. So even though everything went well when he started, he would eventually die. So that's why even though means here. So even though Magellan would eventually die, right, on his ambitious cruise around the world, nothing was wrong, nothing was unusual, nothing was weird. All those things nothing was out of place, right? All those could fit here. I saw someone saying suspicious, weird, unusual, rest. Yes. So nothing was unusual, nothing was suspicious on the day he left his home, but he would eventually die. So whenever you're looking for the answer here, you will be looking for something that starts off with meaning nothing bad happened, right? It was maybe a positive word in terms of, although it's going to be negative in dying, like it's going to negate the dying, or it's going to be positive in terms of nothing was wrong, right? So that's what we are looking for. So innocuous means harmless. Innocuous basically means harmless. So in the context of this sentence, innocuous does not really work. So nothing was harmless, right? So it doesn't really make sense because we are not talking about anything in specific. So nothing was harmless. So if a sheep is innocuous, means a sheep was harmless. The meat that we ate was innocuous, meaning the meat that we ate was harmless. So harmless does not work here. Potentious, potent, right? Of great significance here. Usually, but also means foreboding. So of great significance is usually bad, so foreboding. So nothing was potential. So nothing was potent, right? Potent means poisonous. So that's the root of this word, potent, poisonous. So nothing was bad, right? Nothing was poisonous. Nothing was unusual. Nothing. So there was no foreboding. There was no like bad omens, right? So this one could work in the terms of this sentence. So even though he would die, nothing was really horrible on that day, right? Propitious means favorable. That's the meaning. Propitious meaning favorable. Again, prop meaning prosper. Propitious, prosper, right? That's the prefix of that word. So nothing was favorable, right? If nothing was favorable, probably you will not have taken that journey. So nothing, as in there was no sign that's going to end badly. No sign that it was going to die. So again, propitious here doesn't really make sense for this. Nothing was amiss, right? Amiss means wrong. Amiss means improper. Amiss means wrong or improper, right? So again, nothing was wrong, nothing was amiss. So here it could work for us. Auspicious is usually positive. Auspice means like positive. So promising, again, favorable. Auspicious and propitious means are synonyms. These two are synonyms, they mean the same thing. So again, this one will not really work for us. Ingenious or ingenious, depending on how you read it, means naive. Again, the ingenious people, right? The indigenous, right? That's the root of that word, indigenous, like naive. This means naive or innocent, or naive and innocent, rather. Naive and innocent. So again, doesn't really work for us. This will leave us with those people who said potentials. If you had said potential, if you had said amiss, you would have gotten that correctly. So potentials and amiss. So even though Magellan will eventually die on his ambitious cruise around the world, nothing was potentials on the morning of his departure from his home port. And then even though Magellan would eventually die on his ambitious cruise around the world, nothing was amiss on the morning of his departure from his home port. So again, even though here it really stands out, even though negates whatever happened in the second part of the sentence. So as had been mentioned by Ian, right? So to the next question. Let's give you 10 seconds, read the question, try and process it, and then let me have someone maybe tell us what they think about the question. Anyone? What do you think? Which word stands out to you? Which word? What do you think the sentence means? Yes, I'm seeing Brian. Go ahead, Brian.
So when you read the sentence, since the invention of computer chips and processors have become smaller and simpler, but so the mention of the word but automatically changes the whole sentence. So if the sentence was positive, let's say chips and processors become smaller and simpler. So we expect the second part of the sentence to be something negative or something which contradicts the first part of the sentence. For me, that is what I would say.
Yeah, and you would have said it correctly. So the but here again stands out for us. So since the invention of computers, chips processors have become smaller and simpler, but computer programs have become increasingly blank. So we are talking about this one being smaller, they become smaller and simpler. So even though computer chips, this first part, the but here would oppose the second, would negate whatever we are talking about here. So we are talking about chips and processors becoming smaller. So the computer programs would again become complex, right? Complex, they will become maybe bigger, right? The opposite of smaller is bigger. So, but computer programs are becoming increasingly complex, are becoming increasingly like bigger, maybe difficult, right? Those are the words maybe that you will be thinking about whenever you're thinking about this sentence because of the, again, but here. So whenever you're reading, try and look out for these types of words that change the meaning of the sentence. So let's look at this. Anomalous. Anomalous means deviating, not normal. So not normal. So we have normal here as the root word. So anomalous meaning deviating from the norm here, which in this aspect, we're not really talking about deviation. We're talking about something that is opposite of smaller or simpler. So we need something that is the opposite of either being smaller or simpler. So anomalous will not work out for us. The second one, we have efficient. Efficient is being competent and capable. Wasting little resources. So that's what efficient mean. Again, we need it to be opposite of smaller and simpler. So we're saying but. So but again would be maybe efficient. Efficient, smaller and simpler is something efficient. So it's not efficient. It becomes probably less efficient, right? So that again will not work. Byzantine means complex. This one means complex. Byzantine means complex. That's basically the meaning of this word. So this one would probably work out for us. Treacherous means unsafe, right? Unsafe and difficult. That's what treacherous means. So here we don't really have anything that talks about computers being unsafe. This sentence does not imply anything on it being difficult or it being unsafe. Like unsafe here being the keyword. It could be difficult, yes, but treacherous would have to be unsafe and difficult. So there's no really treacherous does not really work out for us here, right? So does not really work. Labyrinth again means complex. It's a labyrinth, right? We have read about the story about the labyrinth, right? So there's usually like a famous story around a labyrinth. So it means it's a complex, it's a puzzle, right? When you have like these types of puzzles where you have to find your way, that's usually called a labyrinth. So this one again really works well for us. Labyrinth is complex. Intransigent means uncompromising. And adamant. That's what this means. And intransigent means uncompromising on adamant. Again, doesn't really work out for us. So for this one, I know they are very complex words, but Byzantine and labyrinth would have worked out for us here as the answer. All right, let's look at the next example. This one is a simpler example. Yes, Doug, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a different opinion. On reading the question, it says, since the invention of computers, chips and processors have become smaller and smaller, and computer programs, they have become, yes, the chips have become smaller, but the program has become better. So it has become more increasingly efficient. Because yes, the computers were big in size previously, but now, despite them becoming smaller, they have become better.
So I see what you're talking about there, right? But now for this sentence here, when you're talking about since the invention of computer, chips and processors have become the keyword here is smaller and simpler, right? They have become smaller, they have become simpler. So we need words that are opposing these two words here, right? So these two words are what like we are working with here. So the but computer programs have become increasingly blank. So the but here means it's opposing what this is, right? It's opposing the smaller and simpler, right? So efficient here does not really go against, it does not really oppose whatever smaller and simpler is, right? We need, the but here means we need to oppose what smaller and simpler is. So if it's smaller and simpler, we need something to be more complex, right? So more complex is what really we are looking for, because the opposite of smaller and simpler is something complicated, something complex here, right? So the but here would be opposing these two words. It would be opposing the smaller and the simpler. It's not really talking about what computer programs are in general. So they have become increasingly what they have become increasingly of is the opposite of smaller and simpler. So they have become increasingly complex. That's why we are going in with words that mean complex here. I hope that's clear, Brian.
Yes, it is.
Please don't say that just for us to move on. Make sure it's actually clear. Don't just say it is for us to move on, right? I need to make sure you're okay with that.
I'm okay.
Are you sure? You don't sound convinced. Doug?
I am. I see where you're coming from.
Okay. So again, the but here would be opposing whatever some smaller and simpler is. So we need to get the opposite of some smaller and simpler. Efficient is not really going as the opposite of. The but means look for the opposite of whatever we are talking about here. So look for the opposite of what chips and processors have become, which is smaller and simpler. So we need something that is bigger or complex. So if we actually had something that means ginormous, for example, here, that would have probably been also a correct multiple choice. So we need something that's bigger and more complex, which is what is opposing the smaller and the simpler here, right?
I get it.
Okay. Right, so the next question we have is, the next question we have is the increasing ease with which, I'll give you 10 seconds to read that. I'll give you 10 seconds to read that. Try and process that. 10 seconds, we process that. With just about a few questions left, and then we can end for the night. All right, so let's read. Anyone who is able to process, this question. Anyone who knows what they're thinking about, like how are you breaking down this question? I know it's a really long sentence. So how are you breaking it down?
Maybe I can try, boys.
Yes, go ahead, please, Margaret.
So what I understand from the sentence is that now it is now easier the way the photos are shot, edited, and shared. It's easier. So the archaic means the previous way in which art photography was done needs to be it's as if they need to be improved to include what is happening now. Yes.
Yeah, that is actually exactly correct. That thinking is actually correct. So the question says the increasing ease with which photos can be shot, edited, and shared means that our archaic idea of the struggling art photographer now has to be blank to include an audience which in an earlier era might have been consumers of art and photography. So here we are talking about the increasing ease, right? That's the first part of the sentence. The increasing ease with which photos can be shot, edited, and shared. Up to that part, meaning this activity of shooting, editing, and sharing photos, it has become easier, right? It has become easier, the increasing ease. So it means that our archaic idea of a struggling art photographer now has to be, so we now have to revise it, right? We have to change it. We have to think of something different because it has been made, the struggling art photographer thing it needs to be revised in some manner, right? It needs to be changed. So we need this struggling art, the idea of the struggling art photographer, we need to rethink it, right? We need to rethink what the struggling art photographer is, to include an audience with which an earlier era might have been consumers. So now the people who are initially consumers are now also producers, right? The people who are consuming and the audience who are consuming this art photography, because of the ease with which photos can now be created, the consumers have now become also producers of this. So we need to increase what this struggling art photography is. We need it to fit also with this audience, right? We need it to include this audience. So let's look at these answers. Option A is morphed. Option B is developed. Option C is expanded, needs to be modified. And then we have E is augmented, F is extended. So let's look at what morph means. Morph means changed, metamorphism, right? Changing in shape. So changed in shape. So morph means it changed in shape. So the struggling now has to be morphed, right? It has to be morphed to include. Does it have to change in shape? Do we have to change it completely? Not really, right? If you think about it clearly, we don't really have to change it, right? We just have to improve it. The people who are already struggling art photographer, this one, the struggling art photographer, does not mean that this person who was a struggling art photographer is no longer anywhere to be seen. Doesn't mean he has been removed so that we only think about an audience. We just need to include this audience in this list of these photographs. So this list, they are still there, but we just need to include now this audience there. So we need to include here, as it's mentioned, to include this audience. So morph means to change in shape completely, become something new. So that's not really true, right? We just need to include whoever was not there. This is what to include is, right? Develop means grow. Develop means to grow. Develop means grew, expanded, or become more elaborate, right? So this one might work, right? We need to develop it. We need to think about it. So this one might work, right? Let's look at the other options. So we can't really eliminate this for now. Let's look at expanded. Means increase in size or scope. This definitely works. We need to increase it in size and scope, right? We need to increase it in size and scope. So this is probably might work, right? So let's look at modified. Modified means changed. Modified and morphed mean the same thing. They are synonyms. So again, depending on this, we don't really need to change. We just need to improve it, right? We need to improve what we think a struggling art photographer is. Augmented means reinforced or supported by something here. Reinforced or supported by something. Augmented, again, doesn't really work for us, right? We need it to improve. We need to augment. So again, extended here is to increase in scope, right? So let's now look at this. We have three possible answers. We have developed, we have expanded, we have extended. So which one do we eliminate and why? I want to hear from one of us. Let's see. Let me hear from one of us. Which answer would you eliminate here and why would you eliminate it? Let me have a trial, just a trial from anyone. Do you have anyone? Which answer do you think we should eliminate and why? What do you think we should eliminate? Yes, Ian, go ahead.
I think I would eliminate option B, developed. Yes, and maintain expanded and extended. Develop, I think, yeah, it can be developed to something else, but here very specific. And also the word includes, meaning it's okay as is, but we also need to add these other different elements. So yeah, that's my view. C and F.
So you're saying C and F. That's actually pretty correct, right? So develop here means to make something more elaborate, make something more complex, right? Make something more complex. We don't really need to make this more elaborate. We don't need to more complex. We just need to include this audience. This audience was initially it was not included, but we need to include it. How do we include it? We increase the scope, we increase the size, right? And the words that best describe increasing in size will be expanded, and extended. C and F works perfectly for this. So to increase ease with which photos can be shot, edited, and shared means that our archaic idea of a struggling art photographer now has to be expanded to include an audience, or now has to be extended to include an audience which in an earlier era might have been consumers of art photography, right? So that is of course correct. I think we'll do 2 more examples, and then I think we can stop there for today. So we'll do these and then 1 more, and then we can stop there for today. So we have number 9 and then number 10, and then we can stop there. So when Jeffrey fell, let me give you 10 seconds, right? Let me give you 10 seconds. Process that and then tell me, what do you think about this question? What do you think about this question? Let me have a volunteer, please. Do we have anyone? Let me get someone, please. I just need to know, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think about this sentence? What are you thinking about when you read this sentence? I need to hear your opinions. Yes, Deborah, go ahead, please. Deborah and Joy, go ahead. You are on mute. Please unmute.
Okay, I think, yeah, I think when Jeff fell prey to an online credit card scam, the sting of the answer maybe should be the sting of the deception or something, or hurt him more than the loss of the money. So I feel that this one gives us a negative answer.
Okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from. That is actually a good idea. So I saw Brian also raise their hand. Brian, that's a very good opinion, and that's a correct opinion, Deborah. So let's hear from Brian.
So for me, when you read the sentence, when Jeff fell prey to an online credit scam, comma, so that's the first part of the sentence where the comma ends. And then we have the second part of the sentence, which now tries to show us how he felt, the feeling of being lied to and being deceived. So when you're going to find the answers, we'll find a word that comes close to being deceived, or rather being played a prank on, because it relates to a feeling, the feeling of how someone feels when you've been scammed. Yes, that's how I would debate on the sentence.
All right, yeah, that's also a good breakdown of that question. So Margaret is saying the sting of being lied to, right? So whenever you're reading this question, let's look at it. When Jeff fell prey to an online credit card scam, the sting of something, right? The sting of whatever happened hurt him more than the loss of money. So whatever happened to him hurt him more than the loss of money. And then we are talking about falling prey to an online scam, right? So what does online scam do to you? So they cheat, right? They cheat you out of your money. They lie, right? Someone say deceitful. They're being deceitful, right? They lie to you, basically. So the sting of being lied to, basically, this is what my answer would be. The sting of being lied to, that's what would be my personal answer. The sting of being lied to, like the way they cheated him, it hurt him more than the loss of money. So whenever I'm looking at the answers, I'm trying to think of answer that means lied to, that means being cheated out of, right? So let's look at this. Suffering means to undergo pain. To undergo or feel pain, right? To undergo or also feel pain. This suffering. So being scammed online does not really work with feeling pain, right? They have not hurt you physically. So suffering would not work here. We have duplicity. Duplicity means dishonesty. Dishonesty, right? Dishonesty. Let me write this correctly. dishonesty. So again, duplicity might work, right? So the dishonesty, the sting of being lied to, dishonesty, duplicity, right, might work. Let's look at that. Faithlessness, faithlessness also means being disloyal. Being disloyal does not really work, doesn't really work for us, right? Falsehood, falsehood means being dishonest. Being dishonest, all right, might work, right? Might work. Let's look at the answer. Deception, cheating, or being dishonest. Again, being dishonest, right? This one also might work. Indigence, this just means poverty, right? The sting of poverty, right? This does not, we are saying whatever happened hurt him more than the loss of money. So we are not talking about being poor here. That does not really matter to him. Whatever happened to him hurt more than the loss of money. So we have duplicity, we have falsehood, we have deception. So why would falsehood not work for me? Why would falsehood not work for me? So the sting of falsehood hurt him more. So just from the logical, so we say the sentence must make sense logically, grammatically also. So falsehood is a correct option, but does not really fit grammatically in this sentence. So that's why falsehood will have to be eliminated. So those ones who said B and E, meaning duplicity and deception, will be right. So when Jeff fell prey to an online scam, credit scam, the sting of duplicity hurt him more than the loss of money, or the sting of deception hurt him more than the loss of money. So we have B and E from Faith. That is absolutely correct. Amos is saying B and E also correct. Margaret was able to break down that question very well. So nice. Thank you for those trials, right? So you're able to get that. We have, I think, what will be our final example for today. Let's look at this. In order to stop the uproar on social media that was blank by the politicians and popular comment, his president had to issue a public apology. Right, so let's think about this question. I need to hear some opinions, maybe hear one or two opinions. So what do you think about this question? Understand this question and then tell me what you think about it. What are you thinking about when you read this question? Which word stands out for you? Let me get some ideas.
Boys, maybe I can try.
Go ahead, Ian. Yes, go ahead, please.
All right. So the sentence basically talks about the uproar which was caused by someone. So I think a word that means the same would be, yeah, we're looking for a word that means something to be caused by or started by someone, yeah.
Yeah, that's actually correct. So we are looking for a word that so when you're looking at this question, basically when you break down this question to understand it, we need to say these politicians are popular comment. So something happened because of these politicians. First thing is these politicians and popular comment. Had something happened. So the uproar happened because of his unpopular comment, so much so that his publicist had or his agent had to issue a public apology, right? So whenever we are looking for something. So we are looking for something that caused, right? Something that caused an uproar, something that started an uproar, right? So here on the side, something that started an uproar, right? Something that caused an uproar. So his comments were so unpopular, right? So his comments made people online like go on social media, go crazy, right? So something he said started this, right? Started this uproar. So whenever we are looking for a word, we need something that means like it started, it increased or something like that. So let's look at these answers. We have exacerbated, we have precipitated, we have precluded, triggered, prevaricated, or goaded, right? So let's look at this. Exacerbated means made worse. So in order to stop the uproar on social media that was made worse by the politicians and popular comment, so we're talking about these politicians and popular comment here. So made worse, right? So it's not, was this uproar made worse? So it started because of these politicians and popular comments. So it was not really made worse. We want something that means started or caused this uproar, right? So made worse does not really work for us here. Precipitated was brought about with haste, or also accelerated. So this one could work for us, right? So these comments, these politicians and popular comment, precipitated, right? Precipitated could also be used to mean synonym for started. So caused, brought about with haste. So this one could work for us. Precluded, prevented from happening. That's what precluded means. Prevented from happening. Again, doesn't really work for us, right? These politicians' comment did not prevent anything from happening. It actually caused something to start, so does not work for us. So triggered is caused something to happen, right? So his popular comment caused something to happen. So triggered again works for us. Prevaricated means cheated or dodged with truth. I hope we are noting down these words so we can go and do more research. With these words are very common, and then goaded, finally we have encouraged. So these two don't really again work for us. So what we're left with here is precipitated, and we also have triggered here. So I hope that is okay with everyone. Does anyone have a question on this? Right, so let me stop my presentation.